Hello and welcome to Monkey Broadcast, a monthly review discussion show with me, the Jonin Monkey.
And me, Sven, the Crusader.
And so here we are in the month of November, and since next month is December and neither of us want to kill ourselves over Christmas, there will be no MB next month. So this is officially the
2011 Monkey Broadcast Season Finale!
Or something like that.
Woo, cheers! Where'd our audience go?
They disappeared when Linkara left. Anyway.
Wow, that's kind of sad but true.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, we appreciate the 116 of you we still have.
Yeah, definitely. So, anyway, we better move on and make the most of it by moving to our first section,
Q&A!
Look no further than the title, folks. This is where we answer a question sent to us by our fans and subscribers. If you'd like us to answer any of your questions, please send them to us via YouTube PMs or leave a comment in this video. Our first question this month comes from Mandu5, and he asks,
what is, in your opinion, the most overrated / overexposed video game genre and the most underrated / underexposed one?
Any opinions on this?
I wouldn't really call it overrated, mostly because I'm not really a big expert on the genre, so I couldn't really tell you what an example of a good game is from a bad one, but overexposed, for me, it just seems to be first-person shooters at the moment.
High five!
Yeah, I've no idea if it's really the case or not, but to me, first-person shooters really always seem to be the ones that get advertised all over the place, and I know there are some good first-person shooters, but I'm not sure if even the mediocre ones. They get far more attention than any of the good platforming games, RPGs, or anything else for that matter.
Yep, that's pretty much it, and 90% of them are Call of Duty.
Yeah. Also stuff like Battlefront, and what was that game that had, like, North Korea invaded America or whatever it was?
Oh, there's been too many of those. Well, there's Crysis, I know that.
Oh, there was another one that's been getting a lot of attention recently. I'm trying to remember what it is. Oh yeah, Gears of War gets a lot of attention as well.
Yeah, and with the exception of Crysis, there's starting to become a theme in the games we're mentioning. I'd just like to get this out of the way. The problem with first-person shooters being so overexposed is that most of them are identical, boring symphonies of Gunmetal Grey and Baron Brown.
Yeah, I think that's the main problem. I think there are way too many companies just kind of just sort of jumping the gun and following suit, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact that the whole FPS thing has got to such an extreme that, and this is to fall back to the last month we did Monkey Broadcast, they've rebooted XCOM as an FPS that has nothing to do with the original, and guess what? It's brown. Oh
god, that's frustrating. Actually, I'll tell you one of the most irritating examples. You may remember that I have the quote-unquote forbidden free Sonic titles, and you know Shadow the Hedgehog? There was a recent explanation that was released by Sega for why they had Shadow wielding guns, and do you want to know what it was?
Oh, I can already guess, and it's not pleasant.
Yeah, basically, they wanted to try and make a game that would make more of an impact in the American market, and first-person shooters happened to be the most successful at the time, so yeah, they pretty much jumped in hook, line, and sinker into that one.
Oh, God. Sonic first-person shooter, how does that make any worldly sense?
I know. Even when it didn't even make sense for Shadow.
Apparently it wasn't all for the rule of cool, it was all because they thought Americans were that gun-happy insane.
Yeah, I don't know why first-person shooters have been getting overexposed, but I don't think it's helping that much. I mean, I'm not saying all first-person shooters are bad. Obviously, that'd be pretty ignorant of me, because like I said, I'm not that good at first-person shooters, even with the good and bad ones, but having them overexposed like this, well, it's like Sven said, it's kind of revealing the weaknesses of the genre a little bit.
Well, it's not so much a general weakness as it is the weaknesses that have been appearing in the last 8 years or so, because the last 8 years or so is whenever Call of Duty basically took over and made it all brown and gray, like I said.
Yeah, I think we found one we think is overexposed. Underrated and underexposed?
Strategy RPGs.
That's a good one, actually. I was tempted to say RPGs in general, but I think there's a show I watch regularly called Extra Credits, which I would recommend to anyone else, because seriously, it's a really fascinating show to watch. But basically, during a Q&A episode, one of the questions said was, why is the JRPG genre stagnant? And then they said, the reason people think it's stagnant is because they assume that Final Fantasy speaks for the entire RPG genre, which to be blunt, it doesn't.
Yeah, that's another thing about the whole one game just sort of taking over. Everyone thinks Final Fantasy.
It's not really a case of being underrated, it's just a case of one franchise dominating the marketplace and not allowing anyone else any spotlight.
Yeah, case in point. Actually, this is a very good case in point. In 1997, 2 RPGs that I played came out. One was Final Fantasy VII, which I could not get past the intro, I found it so boring. Number 2 was Legend of Legaia, possibly the greatest RPG I've ever played, and also my first.
Aww.
Guess which one got the more exposure?
Yeah. Well, yeah, we're getting slightly off topic now, but yeah, I would definitely have to agree with you. In terms of actual, just any titles, big or small, getting any attention, I would have to agree with you. Strategy RPGs really need more love.
Yeah, I mean, even Fire Emblem, and Fire Emblem is, by strategy RPG standards, Fire Emblem is explosively popular, but, as you may or may not have noticed, the popularity's kind of tapered off to the point that they've stopped localizing it.
Yeah, although to be fair, they weren't even localizing it beforehand. I swear, it's literally because of Smash Brothers that they made it over.
Yeah, and that's kind of sad, really, that it took all that time for them to expose a game such that it got a North American release, and only because of that did people say, hey, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad that literally I would not have checked out Fire Emblem if I hadn't played Smash Bros. Melee and thought, oh, Roy looks cool. That's a...
Me either! That's the thing, Roy was my favorite character, and all I knew about Fire Emblem 7 going in was that there was a character who looked identical to him, so I was like, I'll take it!
Yeah, definitely! And it's even more sad too, the number of times I wanted to bash my head against the keyboard because I've looked around forums and I've seen people say, remove Icon Roy, no one really cares about Fire Emblem, you know, it's...
Yeah, the sad thing is, after an 8, that's kind of become more and more true.
Yeah, I
mean, the only ones who really seem to care about him are nerds like us.
Well, to be fair, I honestly think Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn did actually get some attention. It's just that it's more of a cult thing. I think the problem with a lot of strategy RPGs is there are some people who just like quick satisfaction games, and with strategy games, it takes a long time to invest in them because you have to learn every single one of the moves and plan strategies ahead, and some of the games can be brutal.
Yeah, it is a point that it is an endeavor of patience, shall we say, because, Ogre Battle 64. That's
yeah. Oh god, the number of mechanics. Even after I managed to beat the game and get the good ending, I still haven't mastered all of the mechanics in that game.
I don't think I have either, and I've been playing it since 1999.
I wonder if there's anyone out there who's actually fully mastered the game.
There's got to be a fanatic somewhere, because there's always a fanatic who just plays one game obsessively.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know if real-time strategies is slightly more popular with stuff like Command & Conquer and spin-offs like Halo Wars being released, but even so, it's still not that...
Well, there is StarCraft, but even it, in the face of World of Warcraft, is puny.
Yeah. I don't know how you can get into the popular... It's gonna have to take something major to get strategy RPGs in the permanent limelight. I think it's still not more of a niche thing, because... It's kind of sad that in video games, which is kind of, let's face it, a slightly nerdy pastime at the best of times, RPGs are still the niche market.
Yeah, and what I find really sad is the fact that there's this whole world of storytelling and fantasy awaiting people too. But no, they prefer to go to things like FPS games, which usually have all the story of, say, Metroid Other M.
I know, that is kind of the frustrating part, that most people just sort of go straight into the action and rather I ignore or just blind out story, which is kind of frustrating for people like me who really like game narrative and want it to improve, but whatever. That's not to say all are bad, obviously not, because there's stuff like Bioshock which has been critically acclaimed, so... And Half-Life 2, let's not forget that.
Well, that is a good point, I suppose.
It's just unfortunate that right now those are the exceptions rather than the majority. Sigh. Anyway, the closest question off before we continue ranting, yeah, that's our answers. Overexposed first-person shooters, underexposed strategy RPGs.
Yeah, sadly underexposed. I wave the tiny flag for Fire Emblem.
Indeed. Here's hoping the 3DS Fire Emblem game makes it over here. Anyway.
Our next question comes from GameCat16, and he asks... Out
of all the villains in fiction who became good, which ones do you think had the best transition from evil?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, I have somehow not been privy to very many works of fiction in which villains actually do become good, which is kinda strange.
The only example I can pick on the top of my head, or at least one good example, as opposed to ones where I've just gone, what? Why the bloody hell are you listening to him? He's evil, kill him, that kind of thing. The best example off the top of my head is from one of my favourite manga of all time, Buso Ranking, and that character would be, spoiler alert, Papillon.
Oh yeah, I remember him. The guy who was doing his damnness to outdo Kuja in terms of effeminate, in terms of looking like a woman.
You probably could say that. I was just going to say outdo him in terms of general craziness, because when this guy did officially become a villain, he spent the whole time running around in just his underwear and a butterfly mask, so...
Yeah, I remember that. I will never forget it either.
But yeah, to give you a summary, Papillon basically became the villain of his own arc and was eventually defeated by the hero, but as part of the second arc that came afterwards, he was revived by the organization called LXE, or the League of Extraordinary Elect, which is not only an odd name, but a reference to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, apparently. But anyway,
well, I can see where that's coming from. It's just kind of unwieldy.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah. He's revived from that organization, and at first it seems like he's going to become a villain again, but basically, then during that arc, there's a slight gradual shift in his character in that he doesn't really consider himself on the same side of the heroes. He's still taunting them, and he makes it his absolute goal to defeat the hero Kusuke, now proclaiming himself as his rival because, well, you know, the hero did attempt to kill him and everything. That kind of sticks with you. Then, at the same time, he started to get really irritated with the organization he was working with, because none of them took him seriously, and in fact, he overhears the main honcho of the organization saying, he really is pathetic, I don't want to use him in battle because he can't really do anything on his own, but he's a homunculus, so I'm going to look after him. So he eventually fights against the main villain alongside the heroes, not because of the moral thing, but mostly out of pride. But I can spend ages summarizing the plot. The point is, the reason that it's such a good transition from evil to good is that everything he does, whether it be good or evil, is purely for his own self-interest. In the final arc, he does go out of his way to help the hero, but it's still on the pretext that eventually they will have a fight to the death afterwards. So, it's kind of in the same way of Vegeta, no one is allowed to kill you but me, but unlike Vegeta, he doesn't abandon all common sense just to do it.
Huh. Never actually went that far into Buso Rankin, but now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I definitely recommend it for that.